During the last, let's call it month or so, we have heard that all these different names associated potentially with the Los Angeles Lakers. And a couple of those names, from a Bigs perspective, Lakers obviously trying to do everything they possibly can to address what they need and what everybody knows they need, which is get a big. And we've heard all the names. You've heard, you can Nick Claxton, Brooke Lopez, Clint Capella, Jared Allen. You go down the list. We've heard a bunch of different names that have been associated with the Lake. When I say associated, I'm just, telling you that people have either talked about them or, hey, this is realistic, whatever the case is. Or other teams, like in the case of Jared Allen, somebody from Cavs.com basically, I think it was Chris Fiore, had mentioned something along the lines of the Cavs would be open to listening to discussions. Daniel Gafford is another name. We got some news yesterday on Steven Adams. So here's another name that has come up. And I got a couple thoughts on Steven Adams, but let me read the exact topic in regards to Steven Adams, because Adams was kind of a topic yesterday in regards to what can potentially happen with him. There was a story in The Athletic that said Steven Adams is a clear priority for the Houston Rockets. A clear priority that they want to make sure that they find a way to bring Steven Adams back to the Houston Rockets. I'm going to point out a couple things here. And I know, from a money perspective, I'm not going to spend too much time on. I think it's more just the concept of, hey, there are some bigs that the Lakers are going to target. Steven Adams potentially is one of those guys. I'm going to read a quick piece here. The possibility of Adams being lured away by a playoff team exists. Adams, who earned $12.6 million last season, would be a natural fit for teams such as the Spurs, the Knicks, the Pacers, and both LA organizations. But the Rockets are operating under the assumption Adams wants to return and will continue to speak with his representation about a possible extension, team sources said. So they're going to try to make, the Houston Rockets are going to try to make Steven Adams, who's 31 years old, a priority in returning. Let me give just kind of my thoughts real quick on Steven Adams. You guys want to chime in on what you feel about Steven Adams, feel free to do so, and I'll read some of the comments. I never thought of Steven Adams as, hey, if they got Steven Adams, they're good. That's it. They don't need another big. If they got Steven Adams, I don't think that completely just handles the piece of, well, you got the big that you needed. Now, if you told me they got Steven Adams and Steven Adams is coming off the bench and he's giving the Lakers maybe 15 minutes a night, but they have another big that's also there, that's starting, a big that is more of somebody that can pick and roll with Luka Doncic, that could play maybe 25 to 30 minutes a night. Let's call 25 minutes a night. Somebody that was more of a lob threat. Somebody that was younger, not a 31-year-old coming off, surgery. I think it was last year that he had his surgery. If you told me that Steven Adams was part of the Lakers, but there was another big that was also involved and they weren't just dependent on Steven Adams, then I would tell you that makes a lot of sense. But if you told me they only got Steven Adams, yes, that's better than what the Lakers had. They obviously didn't have any bigs. I don't think that's the only answer. I don't think by getting Steven Adams can you just check off the box. All right, you're done. You don't need a big anymore. So I think the Steven Adams thing is interesting. I think he can play a role for the Lakers. But if you look at the Houston Rockets, it's not like he was the starting center playing 30 minutes a night for the Houston Rockets. That's not how they used him. Now, he did give the Rockets a ton of flexibility. There were specific times where they were smart in how they used him. There were definitely times where he was an asset for the Houston Rockets, and that's why they're going to try to bring him back. But I don't think Steven Adams is your complete answer. And if you thought Steven Adams might be available this summer, maybe he's not going to be available. And if he has some interest in going back to the Rockets and likes what that team is building and likes his role on that team, then maybe we're all sitting here and we're wasting our time talking about Steven Adams, especially if he ends up going back to the Houston Rockets. So again, I'm a fan of his play. I like what Steven Adams brings to the table. I do think he can be an asset to the Lakers, but I don't think he's giving you 25 minutes a night. And I don't think he's all of a sudden that perfect player to play with Luka Doncic. They need a player like Steven Adams. I don't think Steven Adams is the solution to all the Lakers' problems when it comes from a big perspective. All right, let me read some of the comments here. Again, he's an asset. I do think he can help. I just don't think he is the answer to the Lakers, and then we don't have to worry about it big anymore. I don't think that's going to be the case. Okay, let me. I know some people are putting in some comments here, so let's take a look. Let's take a look, real quick look here. Let's see what we got here. Lakers can't build a championship roster in one offseason. They can't build a championship roster in one offseason. Well, I would argue this then. If you can't, you don't need to build a championship roster, but you got to try to build a contender. You got to just be in the mix. Because here's the reality. If they're not able to do it this summer, well, next summer, maybe LeBron is no longer a part of the Lakers. So now you're making additional changes that are seismic changes. These aren't small changes. If LeBron's no longer a Laker, that's a big change to the organization and the roster and everything else. So you're kind of kicking the can a little bit further down the road. And by the way, I'm okay with that. Like structurally, it doesn't have to happen overnight. And when you trade Anthony Davis and you trade Max Christie and you completely go with a different team philosophy and you just acquire a 25-year-old, now 26-year-old, of course, it's not going to happen overnight. Okay, let me get a few of these in here that are specific about Steven Adams. Steven Adams is a backup center, would be awesome. Okay? Could be Rockets playing keep away from the Lakers, even if they don't pay him or play him, is what you're saying. And not just from the Lakers. Remember, there was a list of teams there that would be interested in Steven Adams. Ray says Adams would sure help with the rebounding. No question about that. Claxton probably will be a Laker. This is coming from Christian. Steven Adams plays like he's older than 31. Steven Adams is mid. We should be looking at Melton and Herb Jones. Let's see what else we got here. If there is more than one team interested in Steven Adams, we can't afford him. Okay. So I think people are, obviously giving their opinions and their thoughts here on Steven Adams. I'll say it again. If the Lakers got Steven Adams, I'd be like, awesome, great. Lakers can use him. Rebounding, size, a defensive presence in the middle. Awesome. Who's the other big that you're going to get? Because I don't think that's going to be enough. And, I think it's a good point somebody made here that he is 31. I thought he was older than 31. Let's put it that way. So it's not like he's super young as well. And you got this guy high energy playing 25 to 30 minutes a game. I just don't think you're going to get that with Steven Adams. James got a good point here. Not go get Mark Williams, but Mark Williams would have been a player that you're like, okay, right age, lob threat, pick and roll guy, can play defense, can block shots. Kind of, it fit that mold of what the Lakers needed, and we obviously all know that trade didn't go down. All right, thank you very much for watching the clip. Just want to give a shout out here to one of our partners, the Wallace Firm. They are official injury attorney of the Sliwa Show and Hoops Talk, the entire channel. If you are ever in a need, and I hope you're not, but some type of serious injury with yourself or a family member of yours, I would like to personally help you by introducing you to the best in the business, Brad Wallace and the Wallace Firm. Also got a URL out here that you can use as well. Just go to wallacewins.com/Sliwa. Thank you for their partnership, and thank you for being a part of the Sliwa Show.